There's a lot of perks in 7 Days to Die, but not all of them are incredibly useful, and in today's video I'm going to be going through 5 of the worst offenders. Now remember, this list does come from my perspective of being someone with thousands of hours who primarily plays on the hardest settings, so some perks which may be useful to more casual players might appear on this list purely because, at this stage of playing, they don't really do anything for me. And this list is subjective, so stop writing your angry comments, it's just a video game. So let's get into number 5. Number 5 is Treasure Hunter. Now I feel a little bit bad for putting Treasure Hunter here. Treasure Hunter is pretty effective at what it actually does, which is making treasure hunting and buried supplies missions much easier and more lucrative. It reduces the number of blocks you have to break to shrink the radius from 10 blocks down to just 3 blocks. And it gives you 30% more items from buried treasure, which doesn't sound terrible in theory. The problem is that it's so niche I can't really put it ahead of very many other perks. You're not going to be knocking out 10 treasure maps per day very consistently regardless of your playstyle. The maps just aren't that frequent in loot. And actually most of the treasure hunting's time sink is not from really digging up the treasure, it's from driving out of your way to go and get to it. But Treasure Hunter does also help with buried supplies missions, which will allow you to very quickly dig up the box and turn in the quest, allowing you to level up your quest tiers quite quickly. But I think the issue is that buried supplies are just a death sentence on high zombie speeds and high difficulties. You shrink the radius, the zombies spawn in, and then you're swarmed with upwards of 3 zombies at best. Now you can prevent this by placing blocks around the digging radius to give yourself a little bit of cover. Then we get to the problem of it just being more of a time sink to get to the job, prepare the area, and fight the zombies, than it is to actually just dig up the supplies, which is usually the quickest and easiest part of those jobs. Not to mention that buried supply quests only go up to tier 3, meaning at a certain point it does become a lot less time efficient to do buried supplies missions compared to just going and doing a tier 4 or tier 5 clear job. So by virtue of it being a very niche perk that isn't too much of a time saver as is, for the one thing it's good at, I can't really put it above any other perk in the game aside from the other 4 ones in this video. Number 4 is another perception perk, Animal Tracker. Animal Tracker requires 7 perception and has 3 ranks. Rank 1 allows the player to crouch to detect rabbits, snakes or chickens, and they're marked on your map and compass. At rank 2 you can see deer, boar, wolves and coyotes, and at rank 3 you can see mountain lions and bears. Now the pros to this perk is it does help you find food a little bit, and it does help you stay aware of animals, especially if you're not particularly good at listening out for the sounds of predatory animals. But there's a lot more cons to this perk, honestly. It costs 3 perk ranks and level 7 in a relatively weak tree just to unlock it. You also need to sneak to actually activate the perk, which is kind of annoying because you have to remember to use it. And the trigger for this perk is so pointless that you could save time and skill points by just looking around, and if you have the time to stop, sneak and look at your map, you also have the time to just look around and carefully watch out for animals. And even worse, it doesn't affect zombie animals, which would make this perk a lot better. Knowing that there's a zombie dog around the corner rather than just a regular zombie when clearing a POI would actually be quite helpful, at least early on. But as it stands, it's barely a convenience perk and falls much more under the role-playing category than any practical usage in a general playthrough. Animals aren't that hard to find for food, and predators are relatively easy to detect when they're around you. Having to crouch and wait to use it just seems like a waste of time and skill points. At number 3 we have, unfortunately, yet another perception perk, though luckily for perception this is the last one on the list, and that is Infiltrator. Infiltrator has 3 ranks, which again require 7 perception, which is a big problem with all 3 of these perks. Too many ranks requiring too much investment in perception just makes them not as viable early on, which is where they're most useful. Anyway, Infiltrator will make it so that loose board traps and landmines will trigger 2 seconds slower, you'll take 50% less damage from landmines, and you can pick up landmines. Now the pros to this are that you will get slightly longer to respond to the level design of a given POI if you stand on a breaking floorboard, and you can pick up those landmines and sell them. But the cons of this are just so much worse. The Urban Combat book does this effect much better. It just makes it so that you cannot activate landmines by standing or driving on them. It costs no perks or attribute investment and is a relatively common reward for quests and in loot. And the one advantage you get from this perk, which I would say is just selling landmines, is beaten out by salvage operations, another perception perk. Salvage operations will get you much more money because there's things to scrap everywhere, whereas landmines are only really common in the wasteland. And salvage operations is going to net you a lot more of much higher value items than landmines. And one of the less talked about aspects of salvage operations is actually just that scrapping is actually a top 5 way of getting XP in this game. So while you're gathering up all of that scrap, not only are you getting XP, you're getting things that you can craft with, you're getting things that you can sell, which, when you do sell them, you will also get more XP, with trading being another top 5 ways to make money in this game. So if I'm looking at perception, and I have 3 skill points to spare, I'm not going to go for an infiltrator at all until I at least have 3 ranks of salvage operations, and the final rank of salvage operations is unlocked by level 7 perception, which means with 7 points invested into perception, you can double the amount of scrap you're getting and hence double the amount of money you can make. And that'll cost you 5 ranks in a good skill that is useful throughout the entire game versus 3 ranks in Infiltrator, which will let you pick up landmines and sell them at barely any profit in the long run. Also, landmines just aren't that common and most experienced players know where all the loose boards and landmines and POIs are going to be anyway. So for most of us experienced players, it's a complete waste of time. Now that I'm saying all this back, I actually think that Infiltrator could be a contender for the absolute worst perk in the game, but we'll see what else took its place. Number 2 goes to Well Insulated. Well Insulated is a 3 rank fortitude perk requiring 7 fortitude, and the final rank will give you 20 insulation, you'll use 30% less food and water when you're overheating or freezing, and you won't experience the more severe version of those effects. Temperature, the feature in this game that secretly isn't a real issue. When you're cold, you use more food, which is not a problem because food is everywhere, particularly in the coldest biome where you're going to be most affected by the food loss from freezing, as the snow biome is covered in angry walking food containers. And when you're hot, you use more water, which isn't a problem because water is everywhere, particularly in the hottest biome, as the desert is covered in yucca plants, which can be turned into a drink that is better than actual water anyway. So then, when would you ever actually need Well Insulated? Never. Clothes aren't hard to find, food and water are really not hard to find. If the cold is really getting to you, you can just build a campfire for like 5 stone. It's not hard to deal with it. And you can just jump in water or go inside a building if you're too hot. You could also take your 3 skill points from Well Insulated and put them into Iron Gut, which will make you use less food and water all the time, which is much more useful than only giving you a bonus when you're freezing or overheating, as well as give you a boost to your consumable length, reduce your dysentery chance, and increase your water breathing time. I've done 3 Let's Play style series involving extreme temperature, and in none of them did I actually ever feel the need to take the extreme temperature perk. Food is easy, water is easy, therefore temperature is easy because that's all it affects. That is not great. Not to mention that most of us just live in the forest biome and never encounter temperature issues unless it's raining at night. So because it helps with a mechanic nobody ever needed help with, Well Insulated has to come in at number 2. Hey regular viewers, before number 1, why don't you give me your prediction? I guarantee if you've been on my channel for more than a day, you saw this one coming. Pause and comment below. Because this is an IzPrebuilt video, number 1 is of course, Pack Mule. Yeah, I know, I've said it a million times, change the record. Say it with me, it's redundant, just use Pocket Mod. The 5 ranks of Pack Mule are located under Strength, which will open up all the slots of your inventory, meaning you won't have to deal with encumbrance. The problem is that pocket mods exist and unless you're playing on very strict loot settings like 25% loot, they're not rare at all. You can find the double clothing pocket mod crafting recipe in mailboxes, which are everywhere. You can craft them relatively cheaply within the first week. So right off the bat, we have 3 clothing pocket mod slots accounting for 6 open inventory slots. Now, rank 4 and 5 of Pack Mule give you 8 inventory slots, so right off the bat, 6 of those last 8 inventory slots you get from the perk are completely useless because there's no reason not to have double clothing pocket mods on your jacket, top, and legs. So the final rank literally has no purpose in the game, there is no reason to ever take it. And half of the second last rank is completely useless, but the other 3 ranks aren't even much better themselves. In order to max out the rest of your inventory after you have 3 double clothing pocket mods, you'll need 4 triple armor pocket mods, or the equivalent in single and double. Now you can do that easily by about day 14 at the cost of no skill points if you just loot Savage Country containers. On standard loot settings, they are pretty common in those containers, so if you see a clothing store, just go in and you'll probably come out with a pocket mod. On average, I usually find myself with a fully opened inventory by about day 10, and I never have to waste 5 whole skill points on the pack mule perk. Now, you may make the argument, but what about the mod slots you use to have those triple armor pocket mods? And to that I would simply say, what about them? Assuming you can find level 6 armor, which again is not very difficult, getting yourself some level 6 padded armor by about day 10 again is not that hard. And honestly, by about day 20, you can quite comfortably have full steel or military armor at level 6 if you just know how to use quests correctly. So that means that having 4 mods on each of your armor pieces is not particularly difficult, meaning that you'll have 20 potential mod slots for your character. Now there are 6 mods that are actually useful in 7 Days to Die: armor platings, fittings, mufflers, bandoliers, pocket mods, and impact bracers. You can put 5 armor plates across your armor to get 10% more damage resistance, great, and then you can put 5 custom fittings to get the speed boost. Great. Then on your legs you can put 1 bandolier. Do keep in mind that bandoliers don't actually stack in this game, so there's no reason to use more than 1. And on your feet you can have 1 impact bracer, so that means you've used up 12 of your 20 slots right there, and you've got most of the useful effects. If we then put in those 4 triple armor pocket mods, you're up to 16. And then if you want them, you have room for 4 more advanced mufflers, although a lot of people just don't even use stealth, so for them they wouldn't even need pack mule at all. All the other mods are absolutely not worth investing 5 perk points to have access to. You have a flashlight, which is maybe useful, a water purifier, I guess if you need to drink a lot of murky water. If you're a big fan of Molotovs and you keep hitting yourself with them, I could see it being useful. Temperature mods? Come on, refer to number 2 on this list. Temperature's not real, and the 1% reduction to explosive damage you take from each of those is not useful at all. So in the end, what does pack mule actually give you for 5 perk points compared to someone who doesn't have pack mule? Well, you can move slightly quieter, as you'll be able to put that extra advanced muffler on there. You can have a flashlight, you can use a cool hat, and you can drink piss. That's what pack mule does. Not the inventory opening, because the mods exist and are easy to find. You're paying the 5 skill points to remove the 4 triple armor pocket mods, which will allow you to see in the dark as you quietly drink piss while wearing a cowboy hat for 5 perk points. Now well, now that I put it like that, that's a small price to pay for salvation. Avengers Endgame is 4 years old, I should really stop referencing it. Anyway, pack mule dad, like the video, and if you want to hate watch my other list videos so that you can angrily disagree with me in the comments, why not check out my top 7 skill books in 7 Days to Die video here. Thank you to my channel members and patrons for making this video possible, and thank you so much for watching. Please stop typing that large paragraph about how your super niche playstyle desperately needs all 5 of these perks, and I'll see you in the next video.